Imagine walking through the bustling heart of ancient Rome, the sun casting golden rays upon marble and mosaic. Statues of gods and emperors, eyes frozen in time, line the sacred streets. But amidst these echoes of power and divinity, your gaze falls upon something peculiar: an immense granite pinecone perched atop a pedestal, venerated almost as a deity itself. Centuries later, across the world, in the shadowed temples of the Aztec, the hallowed halls of the Egyptians, and even on the hidden walls of forgotten Babylon, the same symbol quietly persists: the pinecone. What is it about this simple seed pod that has bewitched the minds and souls of mystics, artists, and monarchs for thousands of years? Why does a motif so humble, so easily overlooked, appear again and again on the sacred staffs of Sumerian gods, in the hands of Assyrian spirits, carved onto the sarcophagi of ancient Egypt, and at the very heart of the Vatican? Could it be mere coincidence, aesthetic curiosity, or does the pinecone conceal a deeper, forgotten secret? Tonight, we do not merely seek answers, we open a door. For to follow the winding spiral of the pinecone is to venture into the labyrinth of the mind itself, where wisdom's most elusive truths lie hidden in plain sight. The ancients, in their temples of stone and myth, left us clues not just for adoration, but for personal transformation, a spiritual technology buried beneath symbolism. Together, we will trace the pinecone's journey across time, unraveling the veiled wisdom it silently carries. We'll explore why sages from every corner of the globe held this symbol in utmost reverence, what sacred mysteries it conceals about human consciousness, and most importantly, how uncovering its true meaning could awaken a dormant power within each of us. Prepare to see the ordinary with new eyes. The pinecone is not just a relic of lost civilizations, it's a cipher to the greatest of mysteries, the awakening of your own inner worlds. Are you ready to remember what the world has forgotten? Let's begin. To understand the pinecone's enigmatic significance, we must travel back through epochs and civilizations beyond the dust of catacombs and the labyrinthine whispers of mystery schools. This is no ordinary botanical motif. In the world's oldest traditions, the pinecone is a master key, an emblem for the threshold between mortality and the divine. Let us step first into the echoing ziggurats of ancient Mesopotamia. Here, carved upon the bas-relief walls of Assyrian temples, winged beings known as Apkallu hold cones aloft. Some say these are mere dates or fir cones, but why such reverence? The figures are often depicted as guardians, as if bestowing or, perhaps, activating something sacred within humanity itself. Here, the pinecone is poised at the meeting point of the mundane and the miraculous. Leap then to Egypt, land of sunlight and shadow, whose pharaohs and priest scribes were obsessed with life beyond death. Among the hieroglyphs and gilded sarcophagi, the pinecone appears again, perched atop the staff of Osiris, king of the afterlife. In the Egyptian imagination, the pinecone comes to represent the seat of awakening, the point where mortal consciousness merges with the infinite. Yet this motif is no mere artifact of the old world. High in the Andes, the Inca wove pinecones into their ceremonial garb, associating them with immortality and the soul's ascent. In India, ancient texts and sculpted gods often bear stylized pinecone shapes atop their heads, hinting at the awakening of higher faculties and upward blossoming, a spiritual flowering. Even the Greco-Roman traditions are replete: the Thyrsus of Dionysus, god of ecstasy and revelation, crowned with a pinecone signaling an altered state, a passage into realms beyond the senses. But perhaps most mystifying of all is its presence at the Vatican. There, amid Christian iconography, stands the Fontana della Pigna, a 4-meter-tall bronze pinecone crowned in the court of the pinecone. Why would the heart of Western Christendom enshrine a pagan symbol? Is this an accidental inheritance, or a silent testament to knowledge preserved just beneath the surface? Philosophically, the pinecone speaks its own language. Its spiraling geometry, mirroring the golden ratio found throughout nature, whispers of hidden order in chaos, of growth from within, of the cosmic dance uniting microcosm and macrocosm. Every scale, arranged in perfect Fibonacci sequence, is a silent hymn to the mathematics of creation, a living library storing the blueprint of enlightened consciousness. Yet, as centuries turned, as dogmas hardened and temples crumbled, the pinecone's legacy slipped beneath the tides of memory. Through religious conquest, the mystery schools were banished to myth, symbols became ornaments, their power diluted by time and translation. Why was the Pinecone's wisdom driven underground? Perhaps because true awakening inner alchemy threatens the structures of control. For the Pinecone does not merely point to life's fertility, it represents the birth of a higher mind, a sovereignty that no king nor priest can command. Tonight, you are invited to see as the ancients saw to read the world not only with your eyes, but with the latent vision they sought to awaken. For within the Pinecone's subtle spiral lies not just the memory of ancient faith, but the living secret to your own inner resurrection. And as we move deeper into this journey, we will discover exactly what that secret is, and how you might claim it for yourself. Let us now turn from the shadows of history to the luminous heart of the symbol itself. What is it about the Pinecone, its shape, its repetition in sacred art that resonates so deeply within the subconscious? Is there a message hidden within its scales, a whisper encoded in spirals only the awakened can hear? The answer, perhaps, is literally inside us. Many ancient cultures believed the human body could act as a bridge to higher realms, a living temple. At the center of this temple lies a small, pinecone-shaped gland, the pineal gland. Tucked away at the geometric center of the brain, it has been called the seat of the soul by Descartes. Hindu mystics named it the third eye, the ajna chakra. Esoteric Christian texts refer to it as the single eye capable of filling the body with light. All converge on one point: the potential for sight beyond sight. Is it mere coincidence that our ancestors chose the pinecone mirrored with mathematical precision in the form of the pineal gland as a symbol of spiritual illumination? Or did they know what modern science is only now rediscovering, that this tiny organ responds to cycles of light and darkness, secreting the powerful neurochemical DMT, producing visions and altered consciousness? The pinecone becomes not only a botanical curiosity, but a symbol of transcendent perception, a biological stargate between worlds. Consider the myth of Dionysus, he who wields the thyrsus topped with pinecone. In his rites, initiates would die before dying, dissolving mortal identity to glimpse eternity. The pinecone staff was not a mere prop, but a symbolic key, a reminder that the doors of perception stand ready to open, standing not in distant gods but within the initiate's own neurobiology. Similarly, in the Upanishads, ancient seers describe a flowering lotus at the brow, the ajna chakra, dependent on awakening a dormant energy that, upon rising, bestows bliss, clarity, and insight. This blooming is depicted in sacred art as pinecone, like motifs radiating from the head of deities and sages. The symbolism stretches beyond the East. Early Christian iconography sometimes shows saints with radiant halos, a circular echo of awakened vision. All these point to a single, profound realization: the pinecone symbol encodes the map of a dormant capacity. Every human possesses the power to shift from ordinary awareness to a state of luminous knowing. Its scales spiral outward, just as consciousness unfolds toward ever greater complexity and unity, calling us to ascend the ladder within. But why cloak this wisdom in symbols? Why speak in riddles and art? The ancients understood that true secrets cannot simply be given, they must be discovered, kindled, remembered. The pinecone is both invitation and challenge, signpost and cipher, beckoning us to look within rather than merely interpreting marks on stone. As you ponder this, let the intrigue grow. If the pinecone sings of a lost spiritual technology, what else lies hidden in plain view? What rituals or techniques did the ancients use to awaken their third eye and cross the threshold into visionary realms? And most curiously, why did later authorities so zealously veil these paths in mystery, or declare them forbidden? As we spiral further inward or perhaps upward into the riddle of the pinecone, we find ourselves facing a paradox. The symbol is at once universal and obscure, celebrated and concealed. How could a motif found on sacred staffs, royal diadems, temple walls, and even the throne of the Catholic Church become so simultaneously omnipresent and misunderstood? The answer dwells in the tapestry of myth, misinterpretation, and the very nature of spiritual awakening. Let us pause, for a moment, on the most perplexing presence of all, the Fontana della Pigna, the Vatican. Here, in the shadows of Christianity's citadel, sits this ancient, non-Christian emblem. The uninitiated walk past it daily, never questioning the secret it so boldly, yet silently, proclaims. Some say it's just decorative, a relic of Roman artistry kept for its grandeur. But is this plausible? After all, the architects of temples and cathedrals encoded secrets into every pillar and vault for centuries. The Pinecone stands, not as accident, but as a silent challenge. Will you see what has been hidden in plain sight? Mystics have long warned that those who have eyes to see would perceive the deeper vision. In many mythologies, the third eye or pineal gland is depicted as a dormant faculty shut, calcified, asleep until activated through vision, ritual, or gnosis. This sense is reflected in medieval alchemical illustrations, which often sneak pinecone patterns into the backgrounds, signaling the hope of spiritual regeneration. The message is consistent. To awaken this inner sight is to pierce the veil between worlds, to become twice born, to glimpse the divine order. But over time, as faith became system and spirit became dogma, the symbol's meaning was partially obscured. Authorities fearing undirected enlightenment cast the pinecone's secret in shadow, wrapping direct spiritual knowledge in allegory and taboo. Consider the medieval church's caution toward the third eye, which it often demonized as heretical or occult. The power of the symbol was not lost, but layered in mystery accessible only to those willing to seek within. Furthermore, in the age of reason, the pineal gland was reduced by science to a vestigial organ, its potential for higher consciousness dismissed. Yet even today, studies suggest that this tiny gland remains a potent transducer of environmental and psychological energies. It connects us to the circadian rhythms of the earth, adjusting our wakefulness and dream. It is a frontier of neuroscience, a literal mediator between light and mind, day and dream, ignorance and illumination. But let us revisit myth. The Sumerians held that the gods bestowed humanity with the gift of the gods, symbolized as the pinecone bestowing not physical fruit, but the seed of wisdom and psychic vision. In Mesoamerica, the pinecone, as with the pine tree's fruit, was linked to immortality and the transcendence of the soul's journey after death. Even the Norse spoke of Yggdrasil, the world tree, bearing pinecone-like fruit that connected realms, reminding us that the journey upward is both cosmic and personal. Are all these parallels mere accidents of culture, or are they silent echoes of a lost, primordial technology, one which modern people have yet to reclaim? There are those who claim the pinecone is just a pretty shape. Its presence across civilizations simply reflects how cultures copied or influenced each other. But this view crumbles under the weight of nuanced evidence, geometric, botanical, and spiritual, encoded in art, myth, and initiation rites separated by oceans and centuries. One little-known fact: even today, many indigenous societies use symbolic pinecones in visionary rituals to facilitate inner sight, marking the journey from darkness to illumination. In esoteric circles, the pinecone remains a mark of those who walk between worlds, those bold enough to awaken dormant faculties of mind and spirit. So, as we narrow our gaze, the pinecone reveals itself not as mere ornamentation, but as a living map, a master code returning us to unity, perception, and the remembrance of our highest purpose. But how do we actually engage with this wisdom in our daily lives? Let us now move from theory to practice. How can you activate this hidden symmetry within and reclaim your birthright of higher vision? We have danced with symbolism, spiraled through myth, and glimpsed the ancient blueprint encoded within the pinecone. But esoteric knowledge, no matter how profound, remains a sleeping seed unless brought to life through practice. The time has come to ask, how can you, here and now, activate the power long concealed behind the pinecone symbol? How might you move from mere understanding to direct experience? Begin with the body, for it is the temple where myth and matter converge. The pineal gland, your own inner pinecone, responds not just to abstract thought, but to the rhythms of light, breath, attention, and intention. The ancients intuitively practiced what modern science is rediscovering. To awaken the third eye is to harmonize body, mind, and spirit. 1. Light and dark rituals. The pineal gland is exquisitely sensitive to cycles of day and night. Spend mindful time in natural sunlight each morning. Then, each evening, allow yourself quiet darkness. Turn off digital screens, close your eyes, and breathe deeply. In this darkness, imagine a luminous point at the brow, just between the eyebrows. With each breath, picture light spiraling inward like the winding scales of the pinecone caressing this sacred center. 2. The spiral breath. Try this ancient yogic technique. Seated with your spine straight, inhale slowly and deeply, visualizing energy rising like a spiral from the base of your spine to your brow. Hold the breath for a moment at the top, then exhale, letting the energy gently settle back downward. With every cycle, imagine the pine cone at your brow opening, scale by scale. This breathwork not only calms the mind but stimulates the pineal gland's activity, priming you for heightened perception. 3. Sacred contemplation. Explore pine cone imagery in sacred art. Meditate upon a pine cone, real or depicted, studying the perfection of its spiral. Let your thoughts become as quiet and orderly as those scales. Ask yourself, what wisdom do you hide from me? Journal your insights without judgment. Over time, intuitive revelations may arise, guiding your life in subtle, synchronistic ways. 4. Nature connection. Spend time among pine forests or simply with a pine cone in hand. Allow its cool, ancient texture to remind you of human continuity with the earth. Ancients regarded such rituals as portals, bridges between the mundane and the mythic. Touching the symbol in the physical draws its energetic imprint closer to your awareness. Common pitfalls and guidance. Do not seek visions with greed or impatience. The pineal awakening is a gentle unfurling, not a forced breakthrough. Avoid synthetic shortcuts or stimulant abuse. These only confuse the temple of your body. Instead, pursue practices with patience, wonder, and humility. Many seekers falter not through lack of trying, but through trying too hard, stumbling over their desire for instant transformation. By returning to these simple, powerful rituals, you rejoin a living lineage, a great chain of humans who have sought illumination not merely in temples and texts, but in the silent quietude within. The pine cone, then, is not only a symbol you see, it is an experience you become. How might your world change if, each morning and every dusk, you honored this inner temple? What wisdom might begin to spiral forth if you simply allowed it to unfold? The answer, like the pine cone itself, contains multitudes, waiting patiently to be discovered by those with the courage to look within. We began our journey amidst ancient stones and golden rays, drawn by the silent call of a symbol overlooked and underestimated, the pine cone. As we have seen, this humble seed pod is far more than a relic of distant civilizations. It is a messenger from the heart of mystery, an invitation to remember what the wisest of our ancestors knew, and what many have since forgotten. The pine cone, recurring on sacred staffs, temple altars, and even the thrones of power, carries within it an ancient secret, the promise of awakening dormant faculties of perception, the bridge between the visible world and the realms beyond. Whether as the spiraling geometry found in art and nature, or as a mirror of our own pineal gland, the legendary third eye, its presence signals a lost spiritual technology, waiting patiently for those bold enough to reclaim it. We have traced its history, decoded its allegories, and explored practical ways to weave its wisdom into everyday life. Yet, the deepest truth revealed by the pine cone is not about history, biology, or even myth. It is about possibility. The possibility that within you lies a gateway to greater lucidity, insight, and unity with both yourself and the cosmos. Here lies the challenge and the gift. Will you allow this knowledge to remain fascinating trivia, or will you spiral inward, awakening insight from mere symbol to direct experience? Imagine a world where more of us honored the ancient rhythm of light and darkness, breathed with mindful intention, and sought vision not outside, but within. What would humanity become if we learned to open our inner eye as our ancestors once dreamed? Let this be more than an encounter with ancient wisdom, let it be the beginning of remembrance. The pinecone's wisdom endures, not as a fable of the past, but as a presence that patiently waits for those ready to awaken and evolve. Are you willing to look beyond the symbol, to spiral upward on the ancient path of awakening? If this video has kindled your curiosity or opened your eyes to new possibilities, share your thoughts in the comments below, or tell us how the pine cone has appeared in your own journey. Together, let's keep this ancient conversation alive. Until our next unveiling walk in light, seek the hidden, and remember, the greatest mysteries are always within reach, waiting for you to open your eyes.